The number one straight to jail thing anyone does on this app are parents that exploit their children for views and money.
My Roman Empire is what it's going to be like to grow up as an influencer kid and be able to Google your literal birth.
That shit is so scary to me, children with an internet presence, because there's an adult somewhere that is encouraging and greenlighting that and is buying them the equipment to do this and have a public persona.
I think that our generation of kid influencers are going to potentially end up like some of those child actors that we watched in movies and TV shows.
A constant pressure to always be viral, which could lead to them doing things that they don't necessarily want to do, really does lead to just unsafe environments.
Act like you're crying. Go like this.
No, Mom, I'm actually seriously crying.
No, I know. For the video.
I've always said that former child YouTube stars are eventually going to speak out.
As a former content kid myself, I know what it's like to grow up with a digital footprint I never asked for.
The amount of responsibility that I felt at a young age for things that no child should have to worry about, whether we're making monthly payments on our house.
I honestly had no concept of the money I was earning, how much things I showed on camera cost. You exploited me and I let it happen. And I didn't realize it until I got older because I was your child. I am your child.
For most children these days, being an influencer is the dream job, getting to make silly videos and receiving free stuff, all the while making boatloads of money. But what these kids don't realize is that the reality for children in this industry is far less glamorous. Because more often than not, the cost of this success is the oversharing of embarrassing moments, the staging of emotionally vulnerable situations built for virality, and the pressure to perform day and night for content. Over the past few years, we've seen more people bring these issues to light and criticize family vloggers, including myself as a former momfluencer. I definitely have a lot of opinions on this, having been a part of that world. But there's always been this question of whether, besides the obvious outliers, these children are actually being exploited or if they're happy to be in on the family business. Well, we don't have to wonder anymore because these kidfluencers have grown up and are now spilling the tea about what it was really like. So that's what we're going to get into today: the ethics of family vlogging, and more importantly, the stories of the children whose lives were turned into content for profit. Okay, so I feel like a good place to start is with my time as a momfluencer, because if you didn't know, up until a few years ago, I was knee-deep in the motherhood niche. Now, the classic influencer line is to say that you just fell into the job and that you were just doing it for fun and never imagining it would turn into a career. I was way more calculated. See, I started my channel when I was 24, I think, because I knew I wanted to have kids soon and I was looking for a way to eventually be able to stay home with those future children. And in 2018, work from home jobs just weren't as popular as they are now anyway, so I figured my best option was borrowing my sister's camera and filming a plant haul as my first video. And sure enough, as time went on and we had our first child, I was able to stay home, which was amazing. And since having a child is such a life-transforming experience, I naturally fell into the mom space online. But also, I personally found so much value in moms sharing their experiences and suggestions online, and I wanted to take part in that community. Because for anyone who doesn't have children, anticipating your first child can come with a lot of nerves and questions, and the mommy blogger space was somewhere to direct all those feelings. It really felt like a community of genuine moms supporting moms. Because prior to momfluencers, mothers were limited to typical resources like what to expect when you're expecting, which has its place, but doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of what life actually looks like with a baby. Like, I remember thinking, okay, you're supposed to feed this baby every 3 hours and also change their diapers, but how does a day with a baby realistically unfold? But I wanted to show this because I feel like it's important to show the starting point of how we got to child influencers. It began with the humblest of intentions, where moms finally had a safe space to talk about the parts of motherhood that used to be kind of off limit. Like, prior to mom bloggers, who are the real OGs of the online mom universe, no one was talking about gender disappointment, chapped nipples from nursing, or postpartum depression. But all of a sudden, they had this platform that normalizes all these crazy things that come along with motherhood. As said in like, follow, subscribe, they were honest about topics that had previously only been discussed privately in hushed tones. They wrote about hating their husbands and struggling with postpartum anxiety and the feeling that their lives were over. It was a revelation. More than that, it was a revolution. But building community wasn't the only perk of this niche. No, as time went on and the influencer space became more monetized, women were able to financially benefit from it. And while this side of things can get problematic, which we will get into, there was a lot of good that came from it as well. Like, for the first time in history, women were able to earn an income for all the work that they were already doing in their home just by filming it. As said here, through a certain lens, the content mom influencers create could have been seen as a feminist act to monetize the unpaid labor of motherhood. For Becca Martinez, being a full-time mom influencer has changed her life and the lives of her children. Becca bought a house for her family, and she's able to stay home with her kids.
Whenever I talk about doing social media full-time as a stay-at-home mom with 4 little kids at home and no childcare and stuff, I get a lot of questions about the logistics. And sometimes I can also film TikToks and Reels just throughout the day. Again, those don't take much time. My girls are really good at independently playing. And my girls know that mama works, mama makes money and supports the family. And when they're playing independently or they're eating their food and I'm in the kitchen doing like a quick email on my phone, I have no guilt about that at all because I get to stay at home with them and make thousands of dollars and support our family while not missing anything.
It almost feels like a loophole in the system whereby posting your life online, you can escape the trade-off between giving up your career to stay home with your kids or prioritizing income but missing out on key moments of childhood. Because as a mommy vlogger, you get the best of both worlds. Cleaning your house, film a clean with me vlog. Shopping for clothes for your kids, do a clothing haul. Prepping meals for the week, do a meal prep vlog. Anything that was a part of life can be directly translated into content. And if you're lucky enough, it can completely change your life. Back to the book Like, Follow, Subscribe, it appeals to the best parts of the American dream, the ones we can't help wanting to believe in, that anyone can be a success and have the white picket fence house and 3-car garage to show for it. In a country where economic stability feels so precarious and increasingly unreachable for all but the wealthiest among us, is it any wonder Americans are taking their turn playing the viral lottery? But as we know, it doesn't stop at must-have baby toy videos, rather expands into sharing the family members as well, becoming a full family affair. And this is where things get complicated because more often than not, the children themselves become the main focus. While there are definitely some major concerns for the children who have remained front and center online, it's important to talk about the good that can come out of this as well, just so we can get a well-rounded idea of what's going on here. Because for some of the children whose parents blasted them online from birth, they're now enjoying the fame that came with it. As it turns out, some of these kids seem genuinely glad to have been launched into the influencing world through their parents' family channels, like Brooklyn and Bailey, who are far from hating their parents for putting them online, and rather used the social media fame they were raised with to shape their lives. They have taken the popularity in stride and now run their own accounts sharing their adult lives, which, you know, it's nice to see and is the best case scenario for these kids. And we can't deny that there's so many children that would love nothing more than to follow in Brooklyn and Bailey's steps and ride the child YouTuber to adult influencer pipeline. As said here, when we're talking about influencer kids and their experiences, we have to be willing to address the nuance and complexity of the situation. Not every child influencer is going to grow up wondering what their parents were thinking when they put them online. In fact, we live in a country where one survey found that 86% of young Americans want to be influencers. So yes, some influencer kids are living their dream. Another example of this is Avia Butler from the original family vloggers Shaytards on YouTube. Well, she's all grown up now and has found her own success online, with a following far surpassing 1 million across all platforms.
It's sad to say that there is a lot of bad stories that pertain to family vlogging of kids getting screwed over by their parents and just all of those sad things. And it makes me so sad to think that some people had to go through that, some kids had to go through that. But me, on the other hand, fortunately, that was the best time of my life. I don't really think I have anything negative to say from it. I think the only negative thing I would say is I was living in the good old days without even realizing I was living in the good old days. And I wish I would have realized.
It's just so interesting getting to hear from the children who have actually lived through this and hear that, yeah, in some cases, they are more than fine. However, as you already know from the intro, this isn't the whole story because there is a fine line in the family vlogger world that easily gets crossed. And when it does, the success of the family comes at the expense of the child. Speaking of family, in my family, we really try to make time to sit down and have dinner together every night that we're home. And we're not alone, as 52% of Americans view dinner as a time to connect with friends or family. But actually making that happen can be difficult when life gets super busy. It's hard to find time to plan ahead, shop for ingredients, and cook well-rounded meals from scratch. With that, I often get in recipe ruts where I just stick to the same 5 recipes I know to be good for us and easy to make, but that gets so boring. And I'm also not alone in this because 86% of Americans eat the same meals on repeat. But we don't have to live like that because today's sponsor, HelloFresh, breaks the cycle. HelloFresh sends you everything you need to make a real meal, recipe, and ingredients shipped to your door. And you just cook. These aren't super complicated recipes either, as every meal can be made in 30 minutes or less. They also offer 15 plus high protein options every week, and you can pause, skip, or swap at any time with no contract. The key here is that you have no excuse to give in and order takeout when you don't feel like cooking. HelloFresh costs less than the bad habits it replaces. For me, I find HelloFresh the perfect complement to Factor, also part of the HelloFresh family, as I love Factor for lunches and HelloFresh for dinners. Both serve the need of easy, convenient, and healthy meals. I remember especially when I was pregnant, I was essentially dead to the world after 2 p.m. and HelloFresh saved me by making it possible to cook for my family every evening. So if you would like to try out HelloFresh, click the link down below or use code EMBERSFM at HelloFresh.com for 10 free meals plus free shipping. Free meals applied as discount on your first box. New or returning subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's code EMBERSFM at HelloFresh.com. So let's get into where things go wrong, because while family vlogs started off innocent enough, they often don't stay that way. And that's because once it becomes your family's livelihood, everything comes down to views at the end of the day. One of the ways this affects kids is that the home becomes the workplace, and the line between performance and real life gets blurred, especially for the children. Because when there's always a camera in their face, which they often do because that's how they capture the best moments, then the children end up having to always be on. Home, which should be a place where you have a level of privacy, just isn't possible when everything is being digitally documented. And that must be just so confusing for children to have no safe space or refuge or time off. With that, child influencers are often compared to child actors, but while both come with similar issues, I do feel like they differ a lot. In the film industry, there's at least clear boundaries between work and home life, along with regulations that offer some level of financial protection for the children. Child influencers, on the other hand, don't have those same boundaries, and in many ways can lose parts of their childhood because they're always on camera.
So I grew up in LA, and my little sister just did like extra acting work. For every 3 hours of filming, the children had to have 1 hour of tutoring and a 1 hour break. There was a tutor on set designated to making sure that those hours were enforced. LeBrant kids or the McBroom kids, how do we know that there's someone in the house, quotations, on set that day, making sure that the kids are getting their breaks, getting their tutoring? At that point, it's getting into child labor.
It is child labor.
But back on topic, since the children are usually the stars of these channels, they often end up being the financial drivers of the family, even as toddlers. So if the child doesn't perform, then the family loses income. I don't have to tell you, that kind of pressure should not be placed on children. This child influencer, interviewed by Teen Vogue, who chose to remain anonymous, shares her experience. She has never known life that doesn't include a camera being pointed in her direction. The first time she went viral, she was a toddler. When the family's channel started to rake in the views, she says both her parents left their jobs because the revenue from the YouTube channel was enough to support the family and to land them a nicer house and new car. She says, "That's not fair that I have to support everyone. I try not to be resentful, but I kind of am." Once she told her dad she didn't want to do YouTube videos anymore, and he told her that they would have to move out of their house and her parents would have to go back to work, leaving them no money for nice things.
Do you feel like you had a normal childhood?
I don't think so. I think being the kid of an influencer, you have to grow up a lot faster than you would otherwise. People think that creating content is super easy and that it doesn't take a lot of work, but it is a full-time job, and we have to sit there doing takes until like 1 or 2 a.m. for a picture or a video, trying our hardest to make sure that our smiles were perfectly right and we stuck to the script and all these different things.
Now, you may be wondering why these parents don't just phase out about their child if they're uncomfortable being filmed, but that's because the reality is that often means losing a huge portion of their income, because at the end of the day, the children are the reason people are watching. From the cute toddler moments to the awkward preteen phases, and just the attachment viewers develop from watching these kids grow up in real time, it all means that if the kids step away, they risk losing a huge audience along with it. As said here, almost all creators who historically showed their kids online and then decided to take them off made less money after taking their kids offline. How much money are they losing, I ask? Half their money. Let's say you're making $100,000 a year, you're probably down to 60, maybe 50. You can charge a lot more with kids.
We walked away from 3 million followers and over $100,000 in brand deals, and I'm going to tell you why. We started posting on this app in 2020 with just family stuff and videos of our kids, and within a month it blew up. We continued this for a few years, and then we woke up. Contacted every brand that we had lined up and notified them that our children would not be featured in the content, and they all backed out.
So dystopian. Now, to go back to the point that a lot of these kids dream being of influencers, and if given the chance, would jump in front of the camera, well, this brings us to the conversation of informed consent. See, when people question family vloggers about the ethics of sharing their children online, many will say, my child loves being on camera.
My kid absolutely adores being a social media star. We do not do it for the money. We do it because he loves what he does. I mean, this kid is a he has so much charisma. We do it because he begs us to. All you have to say is thank you so much for the 25K followers, and then you can go play.
And while I'm not saying that's not true, that doesn't mean these kids know what they're signing up for. Like, as if toddlers even know what the internet is, let alone that things on the internet are forever. There is a reason why we have age limits on things like voting, because when your brain is still developing, why would we let you make decisions with long-term consequences? As said here, with over a third of Gen Alpha claiming they want to be influencers, many would jump at the opportunity to feature in their parents' videos. However, children are simply too young to understand the implications of having an online presence, and that their digital footprint will last forever. Family vloggers have been known to share outlandishly personal information with their followers. But why should strangers know every aspect of these children's lives? Do these kids want their most private moments on the internet for millions to see? It may not bother them now, but it will when they're older.
As a former content kid myself, I know what it's like to grow up with a digital footprint I never asked for. As my mom posted to the world my first ever menstrual cycle, as she posted to the world the intimate details about me being adopted, her platform grew and I had no say in what was posted. At that age, I became vigilantly hyper-aware of my surroundings, developed an anxiety disorder I have to this day, and dropped out of high school. That's when posing became a full-time job for me.
To hone in on this further, let's talk about the oversharing of these children's lives. Because it's not just that they're appearing in vlogs, they're being exploited for the sake of content.
What's wrong, hon? Why are you crying? Oh, come here, honey. Oh, that's okay. Say it again. Why are you crying?
The more shocking the thumbnail, the more money it pays. We're talking about toddler temper tantrums, potty training, first menstrual cycles, first kisses, first time shaving your legs, and all the stages of puberty. It all can be turned into clickbait. These are the things that most kids would be horrified to see posted online once they're old enough to understand it, and old enough to get bullied for it. But they also make for highly viral moments. As this family vlogger shares, should we be filming this? You don't even care about that anymore. It's just like, will this attract views? Yes or no. Cam Barrett, aged 24, is a child of another mom influencer who shared her entire childhood, leading to bullying in school and mental health effects later on. She shares her testimony over passing a bill to protect child influencers. I plead with you to be the voice of this generation of children because I know firsthand what it's like to not have a choice in which the digital footprint you didn't create follows you around for the rest of your life. So now we do have to get into the darkest side of the family vlogging space, unfortunately. Over the past few years, we've heard plenty of stories of families abusing their children through their influencer business, most notably Ruby Frank from 8 Passengers, who was convicted of child abuse after one of her children ran away and sought help from a neighbor. And then there was the Micah and James Stauffer situation, where they built a huge audience documenting their adoption journey and profiting off of it just to rehome the child a few years later. And while these cases definitely are the more extreme side of things, they point to the bigger issue at hand, that being the lack of regulation in the influencer world to protect children from these kinds of situations. Because while, yes, we have those heartwarming stories of child influencers who grew up and took the spotlight in stride, they don't make up for the reality that many other children may follow the same path and face serious harm.
This is how my mom exploited me for money as a child and simultaneously subjected me to years of verbal, financial, and of course, physical abuse. My mom controlled what I posted and what I would say on camera. Everything had to be perfect and fake. If I misspoke, said the wrong line, or made the wrong face, she would scream and shout at me. You exploited me and I let it happen. And I didn't realize it until I got older because I was your child. I am your child.
This was never more clear than in October 2024, when 21-year-old Sherry Frank, Ruby's oldest daughter, testified to Utah lawmakers about what being a child influencer against her will had done to her. As she says, if I could go back and do it all again, I'd rather have an empty bank account now and not have my childhood plastered all over the internet. No amount of money I received has made what I've experienced worth it. The truth here is that it's far too common that the exploitation of children goes beyond privacy. In some cases, it can cross into real harm, where kids are pressured to perform for the camera or put in situations that they aren't comfortable with, all in the name of content. We're talking about videos claiming family members are missing, or a pet dying, or a health scare. These moments don't just keep the audience engaged, they create real emotional distress for the children involved, who are living through these experiences before realizing that it's for content.
His family is basically getting backlash because they pranked their daughter into thinking that they used Nair in her hair and that it was falling out. Their defense is like, it was just a prank, it wasn't serious, it wasn't actually Nair. The issue is not whether the video was real or not, whether you really used Nair or not. The child's reaction was very real. She was very clearly upset.
Take the example, My Daughter is Missing, which was not just from one video. The title was used by multiple different family vlog channels with the exact same thumbnail, even down to the t-shirt color, which has obviously been edited to mimic the original video. It is clear that after the success of the original video, others followed suit in an attempt to gain the same popularity. They are baiting their audiences into thinking that something awful has happened to their children, only for the video to be about a prank or a challenge, exploiting their children for views without them comprehending what's going on. We also do have to talk about all the creeps online, as much as I really don't want to, but it is just a fact that there are so many predators online and they flock to Instagram and TikTok specifically to prey on these children. In this investigation of the kidfluencer world, they say that pretty much all the parents we spoke to said that men following them and posting inappropriately was a big problem. Some of them said that the first thing they did when they woke up in the morning was block followers, and the last thing they did before they went to bed was block followers. They often post inappropriate or even proposition the girls in the comments below the photos. They do block them, as I said, but a lot of them ran into issues where if they blocked too many, Instagram would start limiting their ability to either follow new accounts or to block even more. One parent said, "I can't believe this. I've reached my limit for the day of blocking creepy men," which I had to take a break from my research when I read that because I was just in shock. I just can't believe the response of some of these parents. Like, you know, creeps are targeting your children online, and instead of taking them offline, you block as many as you can and then wipe your hands clean as if it absolves you of any responsibility. There are bad people in the world.
You're still posting your child publicly online in the big year of 2026, using them within your content, serving them up on a silver platter, essentially, especially after seeing, reading, or hearing about the atrocities that were included within the files. I no longer consider you to be ignorant. I no longer see you as simply unaware, because at this point, you really have no excuse to not recognize the dangers of posting your child on the internet.
And then there's freaking AI always making things worse, because we now live in a world where any and every photo and video is endlessly manipulable, meaning no child is safe online anymore. Which brings us back to the point that simply covering your kid's face while keeping them front and center in your content just isn't enough. Because if there are images of your child's face online, then it doesn't really matter if you cover it with a heart emoji because AI can just recreate their face. Like, I really want to give parents the benefit of the doubt that they're just still learning about this, but I recently saw this reel of a child doing the birthday cake trend where you pretend the candle is a cigarette. But in this video, the parent, I assume, put an emoji over the girl's face during the compromising moments as a way to protect her. I just don't understand why someone would think that's a good idea. Like, you're acknowledging that this video can be repurposed into something inappropriate, and your solution isn't to not post it, but to throw an emoji on it and call it a day. But that is why people feel so strongly about keeping kids offline, because we clearly can't trust parents to protect their own children. Wrapping this up with Sherry Frank again, she says, "I want to be clear that there is never ever a good reason for posting your children online for money or fame. There is no such thing as a moral or ethical family vlogger." Okay, final thoughts. Yeah, this one got dark too, but what do we do? Like, we have to talk about these things, right? We can't just pretend that kids being posted online is just hunky-dory and that there's no problems involved. But that's a crazy thing to say but after. But I do still support momfluencers. I think there is a way to do this that doesn't include the children, but we still get the benefits of the momfluencer space. Like, I personally think it's okay if you are a vlogger, like a mother vlogger, and your children run across screen and you blur them out, as long as your children aren't front and center. But overall, as you can probably tell, I'm still very hard set on children should not be online. Like, the worst case scenario is literally horrifying. So let's not even entertain that. Some good news though is that a few states have already started implementing regulation to protect children. It's not perfect, but it's a start. That's all I have for you today. Subscribe if you haven't. Check out the merch. All the proceeds go to the SA Foundation. And I wish you a week of privacy, I guess, if you want it. Bye.
Proud mama bear moment, if you can't already tell. So my 0.5-month-old Daisy May Jezebel Blue was playing in the mud over there, and she comes crawling up to me and she goes, "Mother, why is it I can feel the earth beneath my feet, feel the sun rays on my skin, I can hear the birds in song and smell the pollen in the air?" But I was just so proud that she's so aware of her current situation. It's just